What's up guys, I'm Sky, and in this video I will teach you the basics of how to code games in Unreal. This is the second video of my tutorial series for beginners, where I basically teach you how to make games in Unreal. In the last video, we went over variables, what they are, how to create them, and kinda how to use them, and what different types there are. In this video, we are gonna take that knowledge and we are gonna use it to actually create something. Because in this video, we're gonna go and create some simple actors. We are gonna learn what blueprints in Unreal are and how to use them, the basics of them, and how we can utilize them to create games without actually knowing how to code in a language like C# or C++. As you might know, Unreal Engine has a built-in system that I already mentioned called Blueprints. Now, what are blueprints? Let's go over that first. Blueprints are basically a visual scripting tool that's derived from C++ language. C++ language is what Unreal runs on, and you can use C++ directly if you so wish. However, most people prefer to use blueprints because it's just easier to learn and it's easier to understand, because you don't have the lines upon lines upon lines of code. Instead, you have what we call nodes. So I'm gonna click here. I'm in the base project and I'm gonna open the BP third person character. This is blueprint in itself. So now we actually kind of know what blueprint is. And in here, as you can see, we have these things. These things are called nodes. As you can see, they have all kinds of different colors, and they are distinguished by their colors because different color means it's used for different things. So for example, the red ones here, these are called events. And events can take many different forms, to be honest. The most regular one, the ones that you are gonna encounter in this video and the ones that you're gonna encounter all the time are events like, for example, begin play. So let's create begin play event. We are gonna just right click in the graph and type in begin play. Now we created an event. This particular event begin play triggers whenever you start the game. Pretty self-explanatory. So once it triggers, we can then drag over here and we can, let's say, do print string. Print string is another node that we are going to be using quite often, and it serves to print a string of text on our player screen. As you can see here, there is a node of development on it. This means that if we were to export this game and play it, the player wouldn't be able to see this printed string. So once you are in a blueprint and you make changes in the graph like this, you need to compile it, which is right here on the left upper corner. You click this and it's gonna take a second or two. And as you can see, now we have the check mark. We compile the blueprint. Now, something to note about compiling blueprints is that if you have made an error, for example, or there is something not quite adding up, Unreal will usually let you know, because if there is an error, it won't compile properly, and then you're gonna have the compiler results down here telling you exactly where's the issue. So now we compile this. Let's go back to this preview and press play. So this basically means we are gonna get to play the game, which in this is very simple. And as you can see, if you notice this, I'm gonna just press escape to leave the game and then re-enter and focus on this part right here. When we press play, you see the string saying hello. This is because at the beginning play we fired off the event that printed the string, and in string we have hello. So that basically covers the events and how nodes look. Of course, we are gonna get much more into it as the series goes on, so just don't sweat it too much right now. So now that we know kind of what the events are, let's actually do something. So what I'm gonna do here is I'm gonna create a new actor blueprint. So I'm gonna right click in our content browser and we are gonna create the blueprint class. Now, as you can see, there is a lot of different options of what kind of blueprint we can create. We have actor, pawn, character, player controller, game mode based actor component, and scene component. In this video, we are gonna focus purely on actor, which is the most common blueprint that they're gonna be using all the time. On the right side here, you can see the base explanations of what each type of blueprints are. For actor, it says an actor is an object that can be placed or spawned in the world, which is a very simple description of what actor is, but it is completely accurate. So let's just create one right now. So I'm gonna name mine BP for blueprint and then underscore gem. Now I'm gonna open it up by double. Now we are inside viewport. As you can see, we have three different tabs. We have viewport, construction script. We are not gonna get into construction script in this video, so we can just close this. And then we have event graph. So first thing that I want to do is I'm gonna click on add, and then I'm gonna scroll down here, and there is like the brick icon with static mesh, and I'm gonna add that. Now we've added that, and we can select it on the right side. We have details, and we can select whatever it is. But I don't quite want the cube, so why don't we export, or rather import something, into the Unreal. So in the link in description, I'm gonna leave a link to my Sketchfab product, quote unquote, which you can download for free. It's a model of a gem, so you download it, it's in FBX file, and then you simply drag it into the content browser like this. It's, as you can see, it's importing, and we are not gonna get into any import settings right now because it's simple static mesh. So let's just click import. Gonna take a second, and we've just imported the gem. We can then double click it. As you can see on the right side, we have preparing shaders. That means it's loading the textures and shaders and all that stuff. So it's gonna take a second for us to see the color. And like you can see, here's the gem. Now you can something notice, and this is a good thing to know for whenever you are importing models, is that sometimes the certain vertices or certain parts of the model don't show up quite properly, but it might not be the issue of the model. In this case, and this is why I left the model like this, is what's happening is if we go and we look at the gem material that was automatically created when we imported it, and we open, we can then go with this node select. We can go here on under materials into two-sided and check that. This will make the material be, you are able to see it from both sides, so it's not just one side. I mean, that's pretty self-explanatory. And then we are gonna hit save. This is gonna automatically apply to all the models that use this material, basically. So we are gonna wait a second here. All right, it finished doing what it needed to do, so we can close the gem material. And as you can see, now it's finished. It's looking just as it should be. So let's not dwell too much on it. It's just something that you should know for the future. It's just good to know. And then we have this error. It looks like an error that we got when we imported it, but this is not an actual error. It's just a warning. It's a warning that the object doesn't have smoothing group, which means it's not smoothed out. As you can see, if I go into the actor and then we set the static mesh to the SM for static mesh diamond, you can see like these sharp edges because this is a low poly model. That means it's not smoothed out, and Unreal thinks that's kind of might be something that you don't want to, so it kind of warns you basically. But for the most part, you can ignore that unless you are working with high poly models, which this is not. So now we have this. Next thing that I want to do is I'm gonna drag this model a bit higher, just so it's not on the ground. And then we are gonna compile this, save this, often save as much as you can, because it's honestly just, if Unreal crashes for some reason, maybe your PC can't handle it quite well, it's just not worth losing progress. So now that we added the model, we're gonna go to the event graph, And as you can see by baseline in the actor blueprints, we can see there are 3 already preset events. We are not gonna use event begin play, and we are not gonna use event take. What we are gonna use is the event actor begin overall. So we are gonna leave it here. But before we do something with that, let's return to the player character, which is the third person character. And we are gonna create some variables. Well, only one for this video. And I'm gonna, on the left side here, click plus, and I'm gonna call this gems collect. And then we are gonna set the type to float. Now, we are gonna implement event tick here. Now, event tick is a dangerous thing to play around with too much, because event tick fires off every frame the player has. So it can be up to hundreds, possibly once the player plays the game, once it's exported, which can hinder the performance massively. So we don't want any difficult calculations or anything to be bound to event tick, because then it can possibly hinder the performance massively. But for this example, it's completely fine to use. So from event tick, what we want to do is we are gonna drag off gems collected. Then we are gonna get them. From there, I want to get the print string node once again, and we're gonna connect it. From here, I'm gonna plug the gems collected into the string, and as you can see, it's gonna convert the string. So now the number of gems we collected is gonna be printed out, and then we are gonna click on this arrow to get further options, and I'm gonna set the duration to 0.01. That way we don't get spam, because like I said, event tick is gonna fire off multiple times per second. And duration of this on 0.01 will make sure there's only one line of it. You'll see once we get to it. Then I'm just gonna drag it further here. I'm gonna get gems collected, and this time, instead of dropping them and either hitting get, I'm gonna drag them here and hold left control on my keyboard, and that means I'm automatically gonna get them. If I would hold left alt, and I can just do it here, I'm gonna set them. So that's just one of the keyboard shortcuts that you should use as much as possible, get used to them, because it's gonna save you a lot of time once you are actually working on larger project. So from here, I'm gonna get the branch. And I'm gonna drag here, and I'm gonna get greater or equal. And I'm gonna set this to, let's say 3, let's say 4, for example. And plug this into the condition branch, and then plug it into string. And if it's true, then what we want to do is we want to quit game. So now that we have this set up, let's go to the gem again. And from here, we are gonna do what's called calling an actor, basically. So, or casting, to be more precise. So we are gonna type in cast, and then we want to type in our name of the blueprint you want to cast. So in this case, we are gonna cast to third person character. Now, not to be confused, as you can see, there is two results here, which is third person game mode. We don't want to cast to that, we want to cast to the third person character. And we get the node like this. Then from here, this is now our access point. With this, when you cast to different blueprint, you can access the information stored in the blueprint. So now we drag off here, and we can get gems collected like this, and now we can access that information. From here, we also can get set gems collected. Scroll down, find it. We're gonna plug this in, and here I'm just gonna do plus and or art, and then plug this in here and +1. I'm gonna compile this, and then at the end of the code here, what I want to do is I'm gonna do destroy actor. This means once we collect this, let's look at the code as a whole. So event actor begin overlap what this event does is if some actor steps over this actor, hits basically this gem, it's gonna fire off this event. This event is then gonna cast to our character and it's gonna add a gem collected. And then from there we are gonna destroy this actor so the player can just keep picking up the symbol. However, there is a small issue because this wouldn't work. If he places the gem like this into the board, the actor wouldn't overlap because it would block the collision would block that. So what we need to do is click on the static mesh here and scroll down into collision tab, and then instead of block or dynamic, we want overlap all. This means our character can walk through the gem but still trigger the collision and pick the gem up. So now, since we have the player start here, I'm just gonna do this floating cube. I'm gonna drag one gem here, one here, one here, and then let's say one here. So now we can try and play the game. So we hit the play. I'm gonna put this into full screen. And as you can notice, on the left side, on the top corner, you can see the number of gems we've collected. So if I go here and walk over this, now it changed to 1. Now we collected 2, 3, and now the game ended. So that's basically it. We successfully created a simple gameplay mechanic. You can use this in a lot of different ways. Of course, you can make puzzle games, you can make platformer games, which we could do in the future as well. But generally, I think this suffices to show you how to utilize actors. There's a lot of different things you can do with actor blueprints. This is just an introduction and something that I want to get out of the way, because in the next video, we are gonna I'm gonna teach you basically how to make a simple health system, which can also be expanded to mana system, stamina system, and all kinds of other stats that you wish. We are gonna do actually more interesting gameplay mechanics. And once we get over that, I'm gonna show you how to make your first game in under 20 minutes. So look forward to that. If you want to see those videos, make sure to subscribe, like, and all that stuff so you don't miss them. And yeah, thanks for watching. See ya.